I pulled into my driveway, already dreaming about a quiet night. Maybe a cold drink, a swim, and some peace after a long day. But as soon as I stepped out of the car, something felt off. There was noise, way too much noise. Laughter, splashing, loud music, and the smell of grilled burgers. My stomach dropped. That was coming from my backyard. I pushed through my side gate, only to stop dead in my tracks. My backyard had turned into a full-blown pool party, except I didn't invite a single person. There were at least 100 strangers crammed into my yard. My once-clear pool was filled with people, beer cans bobbing on the surface like pool toys. A group of kids screamed and did cannonballs, drenching the stone patio I had painstakingly sealed last summer. Someone had dragged a full-sized grill onto my deck. Smoke billowed into the air, while a guy in cargo shorts flipped burgers like he owned the place. Near the lounge chairs, a group of moms sipped wine under my umbrella, chatting like they were at some kind of private resort. A man I had never seen before strolled out of my house, holding one of my beers, looking around like he was getting a feel for the place. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get worse, I saw her, Evelyn Durs, HOA president, self-appointed queen of the neighborhood, and my personal headache. She stood at the edge of the pool, megaphone in hand, surveying her kingdom. When she saw me, she grinned like a politician at a ribbon-cutting ceremony. "Welcome to your new community pool," she announced, her voice booming over the chaos. I didn't move. I barely breathed. For a second, I genuinely wondered if I had heat stroke and was imagining this. But then I saw my side gate hanging wide open, hinges bent from being forced. And just to really drive the insanity home, there was a laminated sign taped to my back fence. Community pool, open access by HOA mandate, my private pool, my private backyard, and Evelyn, standing there like she had done me a favor. I stepped over a half-eaten burger, my shoes sticking slightly to the patio from spilled drinks and melted popsicles. My jaw was clenched so tight my teeth ached, but I forced myself to keep my steps even. I wasn't about to lose my temper. Not yet. Evelyn, of course, saw me coming. And instead of looking guilty, instead of acknowledging that she and the entire neighborhood had just invaded my home, she smiled. That fake, patronizing smile she always used when she thought she had already won. "Oh, Jake, so glad you could join us," she said, as if I were just another guest arriving fashionably late. She handed a cup of lemonade to some guy next to her, completely unfazed by the fact that I looked like I was seconds away from throwing someone into the deep end. "What the hell is this?" My voice was low, steady, dangerous. Evelyn blinked in fake surprise, as if she had no idea why I would be upset. Like I was the crazy one here. "Oh, didn't you hear?" she said, tilting her head. "The HOA board voted to classify your pool as a community amenity. Turns out there's a bylaw from 1986 that allows shared use of suitable recreational facilities. And, well," she gestured dramatically toward my pool, where some guy was doing a cannonball dangerously close to the grill. This seemed like the perfect opportunity. I felt my pulse pounding in my neck. I opened my mouth, but before I could say anything, she cut me off with a casual wave of her hand. "We sent a letter," she added with a sympathetic shrug, as if this was all just a misunderstanding. "But I assume it got lost in the mail." I let out a slow breath through my nose. Oh, I had read the fine print. I had read every word of the HOA rules, because unlike Evelyn, who enjoyed bullying her way through neighborhood decisions, I actually knew what I was talking about, and she had no idea what she had just started. But first, I needed a counterattack. I turned away from Evelyn without another word and walked straight to my patio control panel. She didn't even register what I was doing. too busy chatting up another homeowner, probably trying to spin this disaster into some kind of community-building success story. I pressed a single button. Instantly, the filtration system shut down. The change was subtle at first, just a slight shift in the clarity of the water. But within seconds, the sparkling blue pool transformed into a murky green mess. Tiny particles swirled up from the bottom, and a faint, unpleasant smell started drifting through the air. The guests noticed immediately. People started wrinkling their noses, glancing around in confusion. One guy lifted his arms out of the water, staring in horror at his skin, which now had a slimy, almost greasy texture. "What the hell?" someone muttered, shaking their hands like they could flick the feeling away. A woman shrieked and scrambled out of the pool, slipping on a wet Dorito and barely catching herself before hitting the pavement. The chaos spread fast. More people rushed for the pool ladder, yanking kids out, shaking water off like it was acid. The music still blared, but the party mood had completely shifted. I leaned casually against the fence, arms crossed, watching the panic unfold. Then, just loud enough for everyone to hear, I said, "Oh, that? That's just what happens when an unsanctioned high bacteria event occurs in a privately maintained water source." Evelyn's smile faltered. Just for a second. For the first time, she wasn't completely sure of herself. The party was falling apart, people grabbing their towels and muttering complaints, but I wasn't done yet. Not even close. Evelyn thought she could push me around, twist some outdated rule and get away with it. She had no idea who she was dealing with. I went inside, locked my door, and got to work. No angry emails, no pointless arguments. This wasn't about yelling louder, it was about hitting where it hurt. First, I drafted a formal complaint to the Department of Public Health. 100 people had just been exposed to an unregulated, unsanctioned water source. I made sure to highlight the potential health violations and just how many rules had been broken. Next, I sent another report to the State Environmental Agency. If my pool was being classified as a community amenity, then it needed official state approval. I flagged the HOA's blatant overreach and suggested an investigation into their legal standing. And just for good measure, I notified the county tax office. If my property had been reclassified as public, then surely the HOA was now financially responsible for maintenance, liability insurance, and all the lovely costs that came with managing a real community pool. I leaned back in my chair, sipping my coffee as the emails went out. By noon, I got exactly what I wanted. An emergency HOA meeting had been scheduled. I could already picture Evelyn, scrambling to do damage control, trying to spin this as just a little misunderstanding. I smirked. She had no idea what was coming. The HOA clubhouse was packed. Homeowners filled the seats, some whispering, others already annoyed. Evelyn sat at the front, her usual smug confidence in place, but I could see the tightness in her jaw. She was nervous. Good. She started talking, acting like this was all just a silly misunderstanding. She spun some nonsense about community harmony and working together. I let her ramble, pretending she was still in control, and then, right when she thought she had smoothed things over, I stood up. She hesitated, clearly annoyed that I was interrupting her show. I pulled out my folder and held up a document. Since you turned my private pool into a public one, I took the liberty of making it official. Starting today, my pool is classified as a hazardous site due to unregulated public use. The room erupted in murmurs. I flipped to the next page. And because the HOA reclassified my property as a community amenity, the county assessor now recognizes it as public property, which means the HOA is now financially responsible for all maintenance, repairs, and liability insurance. Evelyn's smile cracked. The crowd turned on her instantly. "Wait, our HOA fees are going up?" someone called out. Murmurs turned into full-blown complaints. I let that sink in for a moment, then went for the finishing blow. "Oh, and since the HOA used my pool for a public event without permits, I reported it to the Department of Public Health. Health inspectors will now be auditing not just my property, but all HOA-managed common areas." A wave of panic spread through the room. People started shouting, demanding answers. Evelyn's mask of control shattered. She tried to cut the meeting short, but it was too late. She wasn't running this show anymore. I was. The fallout was instant and brutal. Within days, the health inspectors arrived, and it didn't take long for them to find serious issues. The community playground? Half the equipment was unsafe. Rusted bolts, splintered wood, and swings that looked like they were one kid away from snapping. The clubhouse bathrooms? Condemned. Black mold, leaking pipes, and a water system that probably hadn't been up to code in decades. But the worst discovery? The money. Turns out Evelyn hadn't just been a control freak. She was a thief. The HOA's financial records showed tens of thousands of dollars unaccounted for. HOA fees had gone up every year, but the money wasn't being spent on repairs. Instead, it was going straight into Evelyn's pockets. The homeowners were furious. The same people who had once blindly followed Evelyn were now demanding her resignation. She tried to talk her way out of it, blaming clerical errors and unexpected expenses. But no one was buying it. The HOA board had no choice. They voted her out on the spot. But it didn't end there. Some of the homeowners were already talking about legal action. If she thought this was just going to blow over, she was in for a rude awakening. Evelyn's little empire? Gone. And I made sure to watch every second of it crumble. With Evelyn gone, I had one last thing to do: get rid of the HOA for good. It started with a petition. At first, some homeowners resisted. They still thought an HOA was necessary to maintain property values and keep the neighborhood looking nice. But as more people dug into the financial records, it became clear. Evelyn wasn't the only problem. The whole system was built on shady fees, unnecessary fines, and rules that only benefited the people in charge. Momentum grew fast. People who once blindly supported the HOA were now signing their names to dissolve it. Nobody wanted to keep paying into something that had been robbing them for years. We scheduled a community-wide vote. When the results came in, it wasn't even close. The HOA was officially dead. And Evelyn? She tried to fight back, sent emails, made phone calls, even showed up at a meeting to argue that dissolving the HOA would destroy the neighborhood. But she had no power left. No one listened. No one cared. A month later, she put her house up for sale. By the end of the year, she was gone, moved out of state. No farewell, no sympathy, just disgrace. And my pool? Still private, still mine. After everything, the chaos, the battles, the downfall of the HOA, I finally had what I wanted. My pool, my peace, my rules, no nosy neighbors, no ridiculous bylaws, just silence, a cold drink, and the satisfaction of knowing I had won. I stretched out on a lounge chair, eyes closed, letting the sun warm my face. For the first time in weeks, I could actually relax. No HOA, no Evelyn, just me. Then my phone rang. I almost ignored it, but when I saw the name, I picked up. It was my best friend, Mark. "Hey, man," he said, a little too cheerful. "Guess what? Just bought a new house, right next door to you. I nearly dropped my drink." "You're joking." "Nope," he said, laughing. "Figured I'd turn it into an Airbnb." I sat there, stunned. Then, for the first time in weeks, I laughed. A deep, real, exhausted laugh. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't just winning, It's making sure the people who tried to screw you over know, without a doubt, that they never stood a chance.